All right, let's dive right into one of the wildest, most passionate, and darkest novels ever written, Emily Bronte's masterpiece, Wuthering Heights. So what is really going on in this place? What secrets are hidden within its walls? Well, we're talking about some heavy stuff. Obsessive love, brutal, cold-hearted revenge, and really, the untamed, wild nature of the human heart itself. It gets intense. You know, the whole story is basically a massive tug-of-war between two completely opposite places. You've got Wuthering Heights, it's rugged, stormy, passionate, wild. And then you have Thrushcross Grange, which is all about being refined, calm, and civilized. This clash between nature and, well, society is what drives every single character in this book. All right, let's get into the story itself. It all kicks off in 1801. We meet this guy, Mr. Lockwood. He's the new tenant at Thrushcross Grange, and he thinks he's moving to the countryside for some peace and quiet. Oh boy, is he wrong. His first visit to his landlord is, let's just say, it's pretty unsettling. So Lockwood's visit goes from bad to worse. First, he meets his landlord, the incredibly grumpy and brooding Mr. Heathcliff. Then, a massive blizzard traps him there for the night. They stick him in this forbidden, creepy, haunted room, and that's where he finds these names just scratched over and over again on the window ledge. Catherine Earnshaw, Edgar Linton, Catherine Heathcliff. It's the first real clue that he's stumbled into something seriously messed up. And if that wasn't enough, he has this absolutely terrifying nightmare. He feels an icy cold hand grab him, and he sees the ghost of a woman outside the window begging him, "Let me in." She says she's been wandering out there for 20 years. This ghost, this moment, this is what cracks the whole story wide open.
Okay, so as you can imagine, Lockwood is completely freaked out by this. He goes back home and basically begs his housekeeper, a woman named Nellie Dean, to tell him what on earth is going on with these people. And that's when she starts the story, taking us all the way back to the beginning.
So, Nellie tells us it all started when the owner of Wuthering Heights, Mr. Earnshaw, comes home from a trip with this little orphan boy he found, and he names him Heathcliff. His own son, Hindley, despises Heathcliff from day one. But his daughter, Catherine, she and Heathcliff form this incredibly deep, wild bond. They're like two sides of the same coin. But then tragedy strikes. Mr. Earnshaw dies, and Hindley, who's now in charge, immediately demotes Heathcliff to a servant, treating him like dirt. And then comes this moment that changes everything. Catherine gets bitten by a dog over at the fancy neighbor's house, Thrushcross Grange. She has to stay there for 5 weeks to recover with the wealthy, refined Linton family. And when she comes back, wow, she's not the wild girl Heathcliff knew anymore. She's a proper lady. And for the first time, she sees Heathcliff not as her other half, but as a dirty servant boy. This is where the real trouble starts. Okay, now we get to the absolute turning points of the entire story. This is the choice, the one decision that sends everything spiraling into chaos and tragedy. There's really no coming back from this. So Catherine gets a marriage proposal from the rich, handsome, and respectable Edgar Linton, and she accepts. She confesses to Nellie Dean that, it would degrade her to marry Heathcliff now. He has no money, no status. It's a choice driven entirely by social ambition, not by her heart. But here's the thing, and it is just heartbreaking. Right after she says that, she launches into this incredibly passionate speech about how she is Heathcliff, that their souls are made of the same stuff. But, and this is the key, Heathcliff is hiding and listening. He only hears the part about it degrading her to marry him. He doesn't hear the rest. So he flees Wuthering Heights, heartbroken. And that one moment of misunderstanding seals everyone's fate. Fast forward 3 years, Heathcliff comes back, and he is a completely different man. He's no longer the poor stable boy. He's rich, he's educated, he's polished, but underneath it all, he is absolutely consumed by one single thing, getting revenge. And his plan for vengeance isn't just about a single act. Oh no. It is a cold, calculated, step-by-step destruction of everyone who ever hurt him. First, he's going to ruin Hindley, Catherine's brother, through gambling and take over Wuthering Heights. Then, to get at Edgar Linton, he's going to marry Edgar's sister Isabella, basically just to torture her. His endgame? Control both family estates and everyone in them. This all leads to a final, brutal, passionate confrontation between Catherine and Heathcliff. It's a really raw scene that shows just how destructive their love is. The stress of it all, combined with her already fragile health, is just too much. She dies, right after giving birth to a daughter, Kathy. and her death just completely shatters both Heathcliff and her husband Edgar. You'd think Catherine's death would be the end of it, right? Nope. Heathcliff's revenge is far from over. In fact, it just gets darker, because now he's going to visit the sins of the parents onto their children. They become the next pawns in his twisted game.
Okay, so let's untangle this second generation, because it gets a little complicated. You've got young Cathy, who is the daughter of Catherine and Edgar. Then there's Linton, who is Heathcliff's weak and sickly son, a son he absolutely despises. And finally, there's Hareton Earnshaw, who should have been the master of Wuthering Heights, but has been turned into an illiterate servant by Heathcliff.
This is maybe Heathcliff at his most cruel. He hatches this scheme to get his hands on Thrushcross Grange, too. He actually kidnaps young Cathy and forces her to marry his dying son, Linton. It's a purely legal move. By doing this, he makes sure that when her father, Edgar, dies, and when his own son, Linton, dies, he will inherit everything. It's just pure evil. But after all this darkness, all this misery and revenge, something finally starts to shift. The cycle of hate finally starts to crack. And it's not broken by more violence, but by something, well, something completely unexpected. What happens is that a real, genuine connection starts to form between young Cathy, now a widow, and Hareton. For years, she'd made fun of him because he couldn't read. But now, she starts teaching him, and that one simple act of kindness, that's the beginning of the end for all the hatred. It's a bond between the last of the two warring families. This is what finally breaks Heathcliff. He looks at Cathy and Hareton together, and he sees his Catherine in both of them, her eyes, her spirit. And suddenly, his decades-long, all-consuming need for revenge, it just vanishes. It's like the fire just goes out. He doesn't care about the houses or the money anymore. He's just haunted by his lost love. And it all comes back to this one line he screamed after Catherine died, "Be with me always." That's all he ever wanted. So in his final days, he stops eating, he wanders the moors talking to her ghost, and he dies. But he doesn't die angry. He dies with this strange, happy look on his face, because he's finally getting his wish. He's gonna be with her. And he gets his final wish. They bury him right next to Catherine. But he had made one last, very strange request. He wanted the sides of their coffins that faced each other to be removed, so that in the earth, their dust could literally mingle together. It's the ultimate Gothic, romantic gesture. They can finally be one. So the story ends with the next generation, Cathy and Hareton, planning to get married and start a new, happy life. Our narrator, Lockwood, leaves, thinking about how peaceful the graves on the moors are. But the local people say they still see the ghosts of Catherine and Heathcliff wandering the moors together, especially in the rain. Which leaves us with that final, haunting question. Can a love this wild, this powerful, ever really be over?